My name is Matt Hilliard. I'm a product architect with Appian Engineering. With me is John Lamole, product manager. We are here to talk to you about everything that's new in 19.2. And Appian, we're always pushing towards the future. I've never felt more in the future than now, looking at an audience full of glowing headsets. If I could have a time machine to go back and tell people, it's going to be future is brightly lit audiences and scooter injuries. I don't know if they would believe me, but that's what I've seen in San Diego. So now this format does tend to arouse my competitive instincts. I want to show slides that are going to attract attention, make sure that people are interested in tuning into my presentation. Things like this, I guess, is cheating, but actually this is a really good presentation for this format because we're going to run through all the features that are coming out in our the release that's coming up, and so we're just going to blast through all this stuff. It's going to be a lot of different things, a lot of cool stuff. Every Appian release, not just this upcoming 19.2 release, but every Appian release is full of a ton of cool stuff, and really glad to be able to be here to share that with you. So first, though, before we get started, just a little bit of context for anybody who's new to the Appian ecosystem. We do 4 releases once a quarter, and we number them so that the year, 2019, 19, and then just the release for that year. So 19.1 was released on the 22nd of February, and 19.2, our next release, is coming out in a little over 2 weeks at the end of May. So no points for guessing when 19.3 and 19.4 are coming out, but we don't announce the specific release dates, but you can take a guess there. And yeah, we've been on this quarterly release structure for a long time, and just keep it coming. We're always busy in engineering, getting this stuff ready. Now, we're about to run through a ton of features. We decided to group them according to a theme. Partly just to make some sense of the structure of the presentation, give some handoffs for me and John, but also I wanted to just call out the things that we at Appian believe enterprise apps should be. So you'll see that as we go. Now, if you know anything about Appian, the first thing we think enterprise apps should be easy to build. So that's what we're going to start with. John, you want to take that?
Thanks so much, Matt. So as Matt said, at Appian, we're always striving to make the Appian platform as easy as possible to use. And 19.2 is no exception. We've really focused on the ubiquitous things that are common in all applications and made them easier to configure. As we like to say, we want you to work smarter, not harder. So the first enhancement that we have is the query editor. The query editor was actually launched in 19.1, and we've made a lot of great enhancements to it in 19.2. For those that don't know or haven't played around with it in 19.1, the query editor is a visual, no-code experience for configuring queries. Basically, you can go through an application. You can create a query that you want using no code at all, just point and click, and then you get all of the actual syntax generated for you. So in 19.1, we allowed the ability to create selection queries, and in 19.2, we've enhanced that to include aggregation queries, nested CDTs, and even multiple sorts. So with the query editor, we can get the data into the shape that you want and the data that you want, but to complete this workflow, you really need to show the data somehow. So we've worked on the next enhancement, which is the read-only grid. The new read-only grid is a greatly enhanced version of the previous grid in 2 ways. It's easier to configure, and it's much more powerful. You can do things like add rich text in your columns. You can have variable column widths. You can even add tooltips and headers. So with that combination, you can now get the data that you want and then display it in an even simpler way. So those two in combination with each other are great, but together it's not just an additive bonus. It's really an exponential improvement. So I'll show you that in the next slide. So with Query Editor and the new grid, you can get something like this. So you can see I drag a read-only grid, I click in the design view, open the query editor, point to the data store that I want, and then I can start making these configurations. So I adjust my page size, I add a sort, I add another sort, and then you can see there's a preview of the grid. I remove the column that I don't want, and then I hit generate. And as you can see, in a matter of seconds, oh, sorry. Sorry.
So good, we're going to see it again.
In a matter of seconds, we had a grid that was already configured. So let's see, 1 second. Just can't fast forward this. Well, if you bear with me 1 second, we'll watch that one more time. So after I generate the query, you see the grid's populated now. Now we want to do something a little more fun and dynamic, right? So you can see in the picture column, it's a web image. Now we offer a very easy way to configure that. You can just hit the display option. We have an option for web image, and voila, the image automatically appears. Now I'll do one more column. That column is going to be the type column. And so with this, we can also add alt text to the pictures. With the type, we're going to add an icon. So if you need more capabilities, you can add a rule, which I'll show you here, to pull a dynamic icon for the type. So again, display option, icon here. And then here, I'm inputting the rule that I need. So now we have a black and white icon. Now we can do the same with color. We add a rule for color, and now we have a dynamic icon with color. Adjust the size with the easy drop down. And then there, in a matter of minutes, we have a beautiful grid. So the next feature that I want to talk about is ICC. It's even easier now for agents to do the things they need in the agent dashboard. We want them to really focus on focus on the customer and not have to worry about some of the more in-between steps. So that, for example, click to answer. Click to answer allows the agent to pick up the call but not immediately start it until they're ready. Also, consult and conference allows warm transfers. So with the warm transfer option, you have greater flexibility. It's much less clicks on transfers, and they can really focus on giving the customer the experience that they need. And then finally, direct transfers. With direct transfers, agents can select a specific named agent, and transfer directly to them. So next, interface from data type. It's actually released in 19.1, but it's an important feature that we want to call out here. So in case you didn't know, if you want an easy jumping off point for an interface, you can just directly select a CDT, and then we will generate that interface for you. This is a great starting off point, and then you can using drag and drop, you can configure the interface as you see fit, and really get started on the right foot there. So next, we have the rich text design experience. So rich text is crucial for creating those visual, beautiful interfaces that we all want and need in our reports. So we can do things like, add flair to instructional text, call out performance metrics, things like that. And now with our styling configurations, you can configure size, color, icons for all this text. So then you can focus on the dynamism of the data that you need without having to worry about the styling. And fewer syntax errors. So show of hands, how many of you have been playing around with an expression and then commented something out and then got hit with a syntax error? Anybody? So more than a few. So now this enhancement, that's no longer going to be the case. Trailing commas are going to be ignored, so that you can focus on the thing that's important for you, debugging or playing around with your expression, and not have to worry about getting hit with the syntax error. And next, we have more templates. So in 18.4, we gave you pattern templates, and so these were common groupings of components that you could just drag into your interface. And now in 19.2, we've added 3 new patterns for this. In addition to that, we've also given you a new case dashboard. So this case dashboard kind of shows you the best of Appian reporting, and so hopefully it will inspire you. And next, I will pass it back to Matt.
So while we always love to make it easier to build applications, we know that it's important that those applications are flexible enough to meet your needs. And what we don't want is actually what you see in this picture here. We don't want the human to have to contort themselves to use a computer. We want the application to flex in order to match what the way the business actually works, or in some cases, the way you want the business to work. So to that end, we have a lot of enhancements in this release that are going to make it easier to increase the range of things you can do with Appian applications. The first one I want to talk about is auto-refreshing interfaces. Most of you should have heard about this at the keynote, but it's just really exciting. We've had a lot of requests for this over the years. Now, our dynamic interface technology, SAIL, that makes interfaces across platform, it's been really good for making things easy to have when you're setting up an interface, it's going to respond to what the user is doing, show, hide, filter as the user is clicking or moving through a form or a dashboard. But now in 19.2, the interface will can be set to update things even when the user is not interacting. So on a schedule, maybe every minute and so forth. And primary use case there is cases like if you have a dashboard where as a user, you want to put that dashboard up on your second monitor, or maybe on a TV that's over where some people are working, and you want people to be able to look at that and just know that whatever information's there is up to date as of the last minute or the last 5 minutes. But we see a lot of potential here, and really looking forward to seeing what people do with it. Now, besides this, while we were looking at how to best bring that sort of auto refresh behavior into data-driven interfaces, we started thinking about better ways to work with data in interfaces as well. So in product management and engineering, we're never satisfied with the product as it is. We're always looking for ways to improve. And so along with the auto refreshing interfaces, we have a new way to work with data in interfaces that we think you'll find a lot easier to use. We actually run Appian on Appian apps, right? We build apps all the time internally. And before we shipped 19.2, we spent a lot of time working with this in particular. And we've seen that complex interfaces in 19.2 are going to be easier to maintain, simpler to understand, easier to work with because of some of the improvements we made with local variables. So really looking forward to getting that out there and hearing people's feedback. Now, another different kind of flexibility, line charts. We've had charting for a while, but now in 19.2, we have a line chart that can display thousands, even tens of thousands of data points without a scroll bar or anything like that. It's just a dense representation. You can the end user can select an area, as you see up there, zoom in. Once they want to, they can reset the zoom, come back out. That behavior of zooming in, coming back out, that's not something that the designer has to wire up. It just you just get that from the component natively without having to ask for it. But you can still interact with the surrounding page. In this example, the 2Y, 3Y stuff is filters from the surrounding interface that's filtering the data. So this is still fully interactive with, as you interact with the rest of the interface, the chart can change. If you click on a point in the chart, you can select something in the surrounding interface. And because we know that line charts are very often used for time series data, we paid special attention to how dates and times would be represented in the x-axis there. So look for that to work better as well. Also on the subject of dates and times, for record filters, we've always had capabilities around single select filter, multi-select filter. Now we make it really easy to have a date range filter so that a user can filter a record list for records between 2 times, or even open-ended ranges, so everything after last month or everything up until 2 weeks ago. And this is all very easy to set up in the record type designer just by asking for a date range filter. So again, another improvement. We're always looking to improve records and how people can work with data. Now, on a totally different note, this is the way as presentation we get to bounce around. We have mobile devices, and we know that users don't always, just because you started to use Appian at your organization, they don't always rush out and download the app. I wish they did, and sometimes they do, but often they don't. So now, whenever someone clicks on an Appian link in an email, a text message, anywhere else out on in the phone, we will launch the native app if they have it installed, or prompt them to install if they don't have it. Appian interfaces do work very well on mobile browsers like mobile Safari or Chrome, but the best experience is always with the native app, and we want to do the best we can to make sure your users are getting that best experience possible. Now, smaller thing, but the Billboard component, this is one of our most popular components of the set that we released in the last year or two. It's a great way to have visual interest, especially at the top of a dashboard or a task. And we added a new option there for people who are there's an overlay, and you can put text or even some kind of components into that overlay. So we added some ability to have that overlay totally cover the background image if you want to put a lot of things there. But what I especially wanted to highlight here is that we're making it easier to switch between those options, which is a small thing, but it reinforces our goal of fast feedback from design to seeing the results. So in the dynamic live view that we have in the Interface Designer, you can experiment, see what you're getting, and figure out what's going to be best for your particular use case, your particular interface. And that's something we're always trying to cultivate. So another thing, email styling. We gave our emails a facelift, make them a little more modern. They also reflect the branding that you have. This is not the world's greatest example because it says Appian, but like our internal sites have Appian there. But if you have a different logo and different color scheme, that will be reflected in those emails. And then here's a big one: offline tasks. We've had a lot of offline capabilities, but new in 19.2, we have the ability to, while you're online, the mobile phone will automatically download any mobile-enabled, or offline-enabled, I should say, tasks, and store them locally on the phone. And that means that while offline, you can access your task list, fill those out, queue them for submission, and then when you go back online, it will submit them on your behalf. This is obviously really important for users who are what I like to think of as sort of ruggedly mobile users who are off in a national park or on an oil derrick or something like that. But what we found is that even people in more conventional settings, sometimes you want to pull out your phone and fill out a task, and you're in a parking garage or on a subway and your connection's spotty. So we think there's a lot of opportunity for this to help here as well. Now, every release, we have these big landmark features, the kind of stuff that you see at Matt Calkins' keynote and stuff like that. We also have smaller things, and I wanted to call out just a few, not all of them by any means, but a few of those smaller things to give you a taste of what kinds of the smaller little pieces that we put into every new release. So one example is accessibility. We're always committed to making it possible for every user to be able to use Appian apps. And internally, we actually test with screen readers and so forth, so that a sail interface without you having to think about it is still usable using that kind of assistive technology. But that said, there's cases where you, as the builder of the app, you have the context that your user needs to really understand what's going on, to give them help. And so you can provide extra text that associated with a component that only a screen reader will read. We also support alternative text for logos now in 19.2, which, if you have text in a logo, some regulations will require that text must be present in the alternative text. So now that can be set up as well. And then a couple quick examples of small UX improvements we've made lately. In one case, a grid, like if you imagine like a grid on a mobile device, there's a link there. It's very small. We made it so that instead of having to hit the link itself, you can hit anywhere in the grid cell and it'll pop up. It's a small thing, but we found in usability testing it made an important difference. And likewise, we improved our type ahead user pickers, so that if you have multiple first or last names, so like a space in your last name, you get picked up better. While normal names still work the same way. And the thing I want to emphasize about these is that you get these changes without actually having to update your application, right? Any user picker you have just gets this new behavior when you upgrade, this better behavior. Same thing for the grids. So we're always looking for ways that we can not only add new features for you to take advantage of, like the query editor and so forth, but also ways to make your existing apps work even better. So with that, I want to turn it back over to John to talk about Connected.
Thanks, Matt. So, I mean, you heard how easy it is to work with Appian, but Appian also plays well with others, like this multi-pronged outlet. We are that one-stop shop for connecting to all your different systems. You don't need 20 different adapters, you just need the one. And our newest connected system is Salesforce. So with this, we can quickly, easily integrate with Salesforce. You can create, modify, query your Salesforce data, and it's a convenient and guided experience. With the two new Salesforce connected systems, we support the per user and also the service account authentication. So regardless of your authentication preferences, we have you covered. So I'll quickly show you what this looks like. I won't click on it twice, so you don't have to rewatch it. So here, our Salesforce connected system. You can see it's zero code. Add your name there. Add the credentials. Authorize. And then you can start creating an integration. You can see these are all drop downs here. There's no code at all. It's point and click. Add the name. And then when you're done here, we'll take you to that integration. So you can choose your object, and you'll see the name, the field values, all will show up. You can choose all these from a drop-down as well. And then you can set the values, and then you can test all from here. So it's never been easier to connect to Salesforce with these two new connected systems. And test. There you go. There you have it. So the next thing I want to talk about is the integration SDK. This was released a little while ago, but I want to re-emphasize some of the importance that it brings to the Appian platform. So with the integration SDK, you can create new connected systems, and you can also create custom components. So for the connected system example, see, looky here, we have your connected systems, but there's something missing, something you want. Say you want that Google Cloud translation. Well, you can get that with the integration SDK. Building out the connected system, we have the exact same no-code experience as you saw with the Salesforce connected system, provided here, and then you can also create that integration and test it out just like that. And that's all built on that integration SDK, and you have the ability to connect to whatever you want. Now, the next thing is that custom component. So custom components, I'll walk you through that. You say here, I want a Google Maps component. It's missing here. I'll add that, and in the lower left here, you see there's a custom component section. You can drag it out of the palette just like any other normal component, and you have the Google Maps for all your designers to use. So with both of these, it really showcases, Appian is always, we're striving to be low-code, easy experience, but now you can create that same low-code experience for your own designers. And not only is this just a great expansion of your capabilities, but also you can publish these on the app market. So the app market, you can get your name out there, you can see what other people are doing, how other people are leveraging this, and how you can use these things to accelerate your own development. The next thing is the Blue Prism skill. So the Blue Prism skill is available on the Blue Prism DX marketplace. It's never been easier to basically use the power of Appian's case management and Blue Prism's robotic process together. You can use Appian when you need those critical human-in-the-loop interactions from a Blue Prism robotic process, and then you can integrate it straight from there. Next, we have documents from web services. So pulling documents from other systems into Appian has never been easier. So now we can convert binary and then base64 values in JSON into Appian documents. So this allows better error handling, more authentication options, and then this really prevents you from having to create a custom plugin anymore. So now you can get this right out of the box. Next, we have API keys and integration timeouts. So for the first time, you can authenticate calls to Appian Web APIs using API keys. Now this is pretty awesome because now API keys don't automatically expire, so you don't need rotating credentials, and they can make Web API calls up to 10 times faster. So now with the integration timeouts, you can now set a timeout for your integration to make sure that if you have something that's starting to maybe take a little longer, you can halt that without it taking down anything else.
Right. So the last thing that we are going to be talking about today, transparent. This doesn't mean that we're making Appian so that light passes through it and you can see things that are on the other side of Appian, but instead that when you build an enterprise app and you push it out to production, you want that to be, you want it to be apparent to you how it's working, how things are going, like first of all, what's in there, what design objects have you pushed in there, and second, how well is it working, what kind of experiences are your users having, etc. So this is an area we've been working towards for a while. So to start, I'm going to just reference two different, seemingly disparate features that we've been working on over the past, and you've seen in the past few releases, that are coming together in a big way in 19.2. First of all, we have what we call DevOps Infrastructure. So this is connecting environments. Matt talked about this in the first keynote of the conference. So taking your dev, test, prod, QA, all these environments, making them aware of each other, allowing them to exchange information. We make sure not to allow sensitive information to go across that, but we're definitely looking at exchanging design and health metrics to make developers more productive. So I believe this was in 18.4 that we released this with process monitoring, and we've been adding features to it since then. The other thing that we've been adding is differences for different versions of design objects. Again, this is over the last couple of releases we've been building this out so that instead of having to look at, say, XML differences or something like that, you can see in the interface, in the way that you expect to view these objects, you can see what's been added, what's been removed, what's changed, and tell what's happened. And so far, until in previous versions, that's mainly manifested as wanting to know, hey, what has changed in version 4 versus version 2 or something like that. But now we're taking those two things and putting them together so that you can compare applications across environments. There's a new option in the design experience called Compare App when you've opened an application. And from there, when you click that, it brings up a menu to pick one of the environments that's connected. In this example, we're going to compare from dev to test. And I see that there are 5 new objects, 3 that are changed, and 1 where there's a conflict, where somebody's made a change and that I don't have yet. And so I have to be a little careful about not potentially overwriting that. From there, I can look at the differences. So here, an application had an action removed. Look at the record type with the conflict and see that, oh, okay, somebody added a related action to it. And I can see exactly what's been made and then make a decision. Because maybe these were all my changes, but maybe only some of them are ready to go to the higher environment. Maybe maybe John was working on here as well, and so some of them are his changes. But I can look through there, add just the objects that I want to create a patch for to the application. And then from there, right away I can inspect. There's no need for me to export that patch and then go to the other environment to inspect. I can just see there what the results are going to be, add any missing precedents that I might have, and then know that, okay, now the inspection is passing, and so I'm good to go. And before I even send the patch up, either whether that's manually taking that up to the environment or going through some automated deployment, I have the confidence now to know that, okay, I've got this set up right, it's going to work, and whatever problems I do encounter, I'm still in the development environment where I can go and make whatever adjustments I need to make. So we're really excited to see this enhanced visibility or transparency, if you will. This enhanced visibility make it easier for teams to work effectively in Appian and deploy changes as quickly as possible. We're attacking, as you can tell, different parts of that feedback loop, right? We want to make things faster to build. We want to make it easier to see what's going on and then tie all that together as effectively as possible. Another major way that we're using the connected environments is with the new user response times feature. Really excited to see this going in. There's several different aspects of this. First, we are tracking, as people interact with records, like record lists and record views, we're tracking how long it takes. And if it's more than 3 seconds, we'll actually save off the fact that it took a certain amount of time, so that if it's we'll save up to 10 of greater than 3-second responses for a given list or summary view. And that does a couple things. One, it lets you know, because sometimes if something is always slow, then it's usually very easy for everybody at all times. It's very easy to come in there, look at open up the record type designer. We added a performance view in the last couple of releases. Hopefully some of you have gotten a chance to use that. You can go and bring those tools to bear to figure out what's going on. But sometimes something might only be slow at a particular time of day. It might only be slow when a particular user who has a particular permissions or sees particular things is viewing. So in those times, this feature is very helpful, where you can go later and look and see that, in this case, Richard had apparently only Richard was having slow responses. And not only that, I can actually click on the linked response time there to actually view the record performance view to know exactly, even a day after, 2 days after, 3 days after it happened, I can see the low-level details of what was causing that problem, so that I know what to do to fix it. And we're combining this with our connected environments, so that from development, I can see how things are performing in production and actually see the performance breakdown, to know what I might need to do to optimize that right from there. So again, we're trying to make that feedback loop so that you don't have to ask for your permissions to be escalated on production, or have the actual system admin to help you out, anything like that. You can rapidly find out what you need to know. Now, one thing I do want to say about this, we know that there's lots of reasons to be security conscious about production data. As I said, we run Appian on Appian ourselves. For example, our performance reviews are done in an Appian process in our internal production environment. So we know that we can't have the developer of that app seeing their peer reviews and so forth about them. So no application data flows across that connected environments bridge. We're only bringing across those health metrics. And I believe even usernames will be obfuscated to user UIDs, so that, because sometimes even just knowing that a user maybe accessed a particular record might somehow tell you something. So we're making sure to cover all those bases. In a particularly security conscious environment, you can disable this. Like, you can avoid, make sure that we're not going to even go there. But I would really encourage you to find a way to make it work for you, because it makes it so much easier to troubleshoot these sorts of problems. And then one final feature to talk about here is the circuit breaker, and this is a rare case. We actually added this and actually hot fixed it back because we thought it was really important. If an interface or expression starts taking more memory, we will, once it gets to a certain point where, frankly, it's almost certainly a bug that has caused it to happen or something like that, we'll actually stop it. And then if it was an interface that a user is using, they might see an error, but the rest of the system, the other applications, the other users on the system are not affected. And that's really important for making sure that we don't have some sort of tragedy of the commons situation, and being able to preserve the experience for most users in the system. Since we rolled this out, I can tell you we've already seen for cloud customers some cases where this was really helpful for them. So we ran through a bunch of stuff here. I'm sure you're all going to remember exactly what we said and what we said about it whenever it comes time for you to upgrade. But remember, you can always find out about any Appian upgrade, any Appian version, by going to our documentation page. Right from the front page of docs.appian.com, you have what's new in the latest version. You can click in and see the release notes. You can also see release notes for past versions. And then from there, it'll not only explain everything, right from the very big features all the way to the smallest little bug fixes and enhancements, but there'll be links to reference material and so forth for you to find out even more details that you need to know. We also do announcement webinars. Every release, marketing will do a webinar that very similar to this presentation, where you run through all the features of that release. So that's another great way to find out about either 19.2, but also future releases as well, 19.3, 19.4, and so forth. So definitely check those out. And then past that, I hope everybody has had a great conference. Coming up next is, well, actually, hopefully it's not this guy. This is a picture of a Madame Tussauds wax figure of Andre Agassi, but I'm assured by the organizers that we have the real Andre Agassi to talk later, so definitely check that out. But in the meantime, if you have questions, we are pretty much at time, but John and I will be here either by the podium or maybe outside if they keep going and we'll be able to answer any questions you have. Love to hear from you. So thanks a lot.